Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's virtual workshop about virtual career fair etiquette. My name is Maddie McNabb, and I am the internship coordinator in the University Career Center. I will be moderating today's event. Please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A section, and we will answer them throughout the workshop. This event is being recorded and will be available with all of our other previously recorded workshops on our website. Now let's meet today's presenter, Mallory Newby, Assistant Director and Career Coach in the UCC.
Thank you, Maddie, and thank you all for joining us today to learn some tips in preparation for the Virtual Career Fair, which is next Wednesday on September 30th. My name is Mallory Newby, and I am a career coach with the University Career Center, and I'm so excited today to present on this topic. So what we'll be looking at specifically is navigating the virtual career fair and preparing before the day of the event in order to set yourself up for a successful experience. And then we'll shift to the day of the fair on how to present yourself to employers, projecting confidence and professionalism. And we'll cover some tips for acing those virtual sessions. We'll have time for questions. So again, please post your questions in the chat feature and we'll answer those throughout the presentation and also reserve some time at the end of the workshop for the last questions that we may have. So let's get started. So planning and preparation are keys to success with most things in life. And it's also a very important aspect for the virtual career fair. Here's a brief overview of some things that you should do before the fair in order to prepare yourself for a successful experience. You're going to want to update your Handshake profile, review the attending employers, research the employers that you're interested in connecting with, and prepare some talking points. So we're going to look at each of these tasks to help you accomplish your to-do list. So number one, update your Handshake profile. The first step in preparing for the virtual fairs is to make sure that your Handshake profile is complete and up to date. This is going to be the first impression that employers have of you, and so you want to make sure that this is up to date and complete. Your completed Handshake profile also helps you to get personalized recommendation for upcoming virtual events and then positions that might be of interest to you based on your education and your career goals. So you don't want to let an incomplete or out-of-date profile keep you from getting discovered by employers and standing out from the crowd of attendees. So what you're going to want to look at is your basic information. Make sure that the details there are accurate. Things like your graduation date, your school year, your major, GPA, and then your work authorization. Also, you want to update the sections with your experience, relevant courses, and skills. So keep in mind, you don't need to list every job that you've ever had, every class that you've ever taken, because your profile is essentially a snapshot of yourself and your background. Your profile should showcase your college experience, which might include things like work experience, campus involvement, leadership, volunteer work, and maybe some of the top skills that you have. So maybe 5 to 7 of those, and even relevant courseworks that relate to your professional goals or your career path. Next, upload a professional photo. This should be a photo of yourself, shoulders up, projecting a positive and professional image. And so you don't have to go to a place like JCPenney's to get a headshot. You can really achieve this on your own with the help of a friend. So maybe take some time to dress professionally and have someone take a few shots of you, shoulders up, and then upload your favorite photo to your profile so you can show employers who you are. Next is the resume. So upload your most recent resume, but I want to make sure that you've had this reviewed carefully before you upload that. And that's just to make sure that there are no errors and that this is going to be the best representation of you and your experience. So have your resume reviewed by a professional, and there is still some time to have your documents reviewed by the University Career Center. And Maddie is going to put the link to our online document drop program in the chat so that you can have your resume reviewed before the career fair. Lastly, check your privacy and profile settings. And once you've completed your profile, you have the option to make your profile public and visible to employers and other students using Handshake. The next step is going to be view attending employers. So you're going to want to find out who are the employers that will be attending the virtual fair to determine who you want to connect with for group or one-on-one sessions. So you can do this by clicking on the link for the virtual career fair and then selecting career fair details to see the full list of employers that will be hosting sessions. Have some curiosity in this process, and if you're not familiar with the organization, review each employer's Handshake profile to learn more about them. You can see what positions they may be hiring for, and then make a list of employers that you're interested in connecting with. Then you can schedule one-on-one and group sessions. Want to remind you to sign up early for sessions with the employers that you want to connect with so that you're guaranteed a spot. After you've looked at the employers that'll be attending, you want to research the employers that you'll be meeting with. So when you sign up to attend this session, and especially with the one-on-one sessions, research beyond their Handshake profile. You can check out their website to do some research. Some things you might want to look at is their mission or their value statement. Review the services or products that their organization offers. Look at things like their leadership team, list of job openings, and you want to come out of that having a good sense of what that organization is about. Go even further and search online for recent news information. So you could get onto various social media platforms, see if there are any news items or updates about their company. And then you want to review the job and internship posting in detail. So look over the descriptions that they have posted that you're interested in. This is really your guide to know what they're looking for. This is also going to help you think of questions to ask during your sessions and make conversation during those one-on-one sessions. And then next, prepare a few talking points. One of the best things that you can do ahead of any virtual event or interview is to prepare a few talking points to succinctly make the case about why you're a great candidate and a good fit for the organization. The employers that you meet with, they want to learn more about you and why you're interested in their organization. And so the best way to introduce yourself to employers is by having an elevator pitch prepared and practiced before the fair. In the next slide, I'm going to share some helpful tips in working on that elevator pitch. But just to let you know, an elevator pitch is essentially a short overview about your background, your study, and your career goals. So when you're coming up with talking points, consider your interests, your skills, and your goals. Understanding yourself and your strengths, skills, interests, and values is foundational. It enables you to connect your experience to the world of work and confidently articulate who you are and what interests you. Reflect on how your interests, skills, and goals relate to the organization and help you to be a good fit. And then you want to also be able to communicate why you're interested in the employer. When you do the research, you should be able to impress the employer with that and by letting them know specifically why you're interested in their organization. And then lastly, have some questions developed for those virtual sessions. Take notes during your research for potential questions, and always be sure that you don't ask a question that can be found clearly on their website or in that job description. And so Maddie is going to share with you a link in the chat on some potential questions that you could ask employers in a career fair. Let's talk about the elevator pitch now. So we're going to look at the elements of an effective elevator pitch, and then I'll show you an example of how you might structure your own elevator pitch. So again, an elevator pitch is a short 30-second professional introduction. And whether you are preparing for an interview, updating your Handshake, LinkedIn profile, preparing for an interview, attending a career fair, or any other kind of networking event, being able to quickly communicate who you are, what you do, and the value that you bring to an organization is a must-have skill. And so an elevator pitch is a short and sweet synopsis about yourself for a prospective employer. And they call it an elevator pitch because it's meant to be brief enough to deliver convincingly during a quick elevator ride. I want you to keep in mind this is not a personal introduction. So many times students might start by talking about their age, hobbies, or other personal details. It's about telling the employers who you are and focusing on those skills and qualifications that make you uniquely appealing to your audience. And so these are elements like your field of study, so your major, your minor, a couple of your relevant skills or certification, and then an overview of your relevant experience. So let's look at an example. I'm going to fill in these blanks just using some information as an example. So, hello, my name is Mallory Newby, and I'm a senior at the University of Louisville, and I'll be graduating this December with a Bachelor of Arts degree in communication. I pride myself in being service-oriented and socially perceptive, as well as an active listener. During my time at the University of Louisville, I served in a leadership role in a community service student organization where I helped to raise over $3,500 for local food banks and provided over 15,000 meals to food insecure families. Based on my experience, I'm interested in launching a career in community outreach with nonprofit organizations. And so this lets the employer know about your educational background, your relevant skills or strengths, accomplishments, and then your goals for the future. So you might want to take a screenshot or just a snap of this photo on the slide so that you can work on a short overview about your background, your studies, and career goals. And then you will also want to practice this with a friend or a family member ahead of the virtual fair so that you're ready when it comes time to introduce yourself to the employers you meet with. So I'm going to check in with Maddie to see if we have any questions about preparing before the fair.
Thank you for all that great information, Mallory. We do have a few questions here from students. The first of which is, can the career coaches at the UCC help me with completing my Handshake profile?
Absolutely. You can definitely reach out to us. Handshake is the place where you can schedule an appointment. And in that appointment request, just note that you want someone to look over your profile, and we'll be happy to look over that. And we can schedule an appointment with you to go over those sections, or we can give you feedback via email.
Perfect. The next question is, what's your opinion on using an Instagram filter for your Handshake or I think like LinkedIn profile picture?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't recommend using those filters because that really isn't a good and accurate reflection of you and what you look like. Especially the ones that might have, you know, puppy dog ears or some of the other things that add on to your photo or your image. It's best to have someone take a photo. So it could be with a smartphone, and honestly, some of the phones that we have great cameras and get a really high quality image. But if you are in a position where you don't feel comfortable asking someone, you can even put your phone in selfie mode. So just that reverse image, and prop it up against something. Maybe you sit at your desk and you are positioned in a headshot fashion, but avoid any of those filters that are going to distract from your image and it's going to make you look unprofessional.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. Definitely would not recommend using an Instagram filter for your professional headshot. So the next question is, how do I know when to use my elevator pitch?
Yeah, so anytime you hear someone say that, tell me about yourself, or that's usually a cue that you're getting ready to introduce yourself, or they want to know about you, and that'll be a great way to start delivering your elevator pitch. But anytime you have to give an introduction, that's where you're going to use your elevator pitch. Again, it can be in an interview when they're asking you, tell me about yourself and why you're interested, or you're going to a networking event and you have that opportunity to introduce yourself to a group. That's where you key in and use your elevator pitch to let your audience know who you are and what your professional background is.
Yeah, I mean, the template Mallory gave is a great tool to answer the dreaded, like, tell me about yourself question. Just have the answer already prepared. So we do have one more question here, and it ties into the last one. So as far as the career fair goes, do we use our elevator pitch in group sessions or just the one-on-one sessions?
Now, from my understanding, and this is our first round, actually we had our nursing virtual career fair, but this is our first semester doing the virtual fair. And from my understanding with the group sessions, it's really going to be more of an informational session where that employer is going to be telling you about the company and giving you some of that information. Now, if there is the opportunity to interact and to, speak, then if you're asked to introduce yourself or to, to speak, then that would be a good time to give a brief overview of who you are and what you're studying and a little bit about your interest in that organization. But I think especially with the one-on-one sessions where it's going to be you and that employer engaging in conversation, that you're really going to want to be prepared in that format especially. And Maddie, you have a little bit more of an insight too on the format with the virtual fair. In the group sessions, it is more of a informational session, right?
Yes, I mean, the companies have kind of free reign over what programming they want to offer, but I don't imagine there would really be the opportunity for you to use your elevator pitch. There should be an opening for questions where, like Mallory said, you can briefly introduce yourself and what you're studying. And like she said, your interest in the company, but you don't want to go into your full 30 to 60-second elevator pitch there, and but it will come in handy for the one-on-one sessions. And I would add that in this instance, you really do want to keep it brief. I would go more toward the 30 seconds than the 60 seconds because the one-on-one meetings are only 10 minutes long.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Thank you for that clarification.
Of course, and that's all the questions we have for now.
All right, well then we will now talk about the day of the virtual career fair. So again, that is going to be Wednesday, September 30th, and we're going to do an overview on some things that you should do on the day of the virtual career fair. So here's your to-do list. You want to get ready to have a professional look for the day of the fair, find a quiet place to set up your station, be on time for those sessions, and be prepared to ask some questions. So let's go through these in detail. Starting with looking professional. So even though you won't be meeting with employers in person, it is still important to dress professionally and to look well-groomed. And projecting a professional image helps to make a good first impression with employers. Employers are going to recognize when you've taken the time to present yourself in a professional manner. So whether we're meeting via phone or virtually, we tend to be more professional and project more confidence when we dress the part. So take the time to get ready. You don't want to roll out of bed and join these sessions. You want to get up early, take time to do your hair, to shave, and present yourself as a polished professional. You want to have an interview outfit picked out, so you want to treat this like an interview and therefore select attire like foundation pieces such as blazers, a shirt and tie, dress shirts, blouses, or nice sweaters. And then when you're looking at the attire that you pick out, it's recommended that you avoid some of those distracting patterns or having too many accessories. So opt for neutral colors like black, navy, beige, tan, or white, and try to opt for those solid pieces, again, avoiding any distracting patterns or too many accessories. So some of those patterns can be look a little wonky through video. So here in these examples, you can kind of see some traditional interview pieces that you might consider wearing on the day of the fair. Because you want to project that professional image, and you don't want to be too flashy or distracting, and that will take away from what you have to say. And like Maddie says, it's very brief, those individual sessions, so you want to project the best look and have the focus on what you have to say. So let's talk about the background. You want to find a quiet place with a neutral background. So plan ahead and try to limit any potential distractions for yourself, finding yourself a quiet location. So if you have roommates, try and let people know in advance that you have this scheduled, especially with your sessions, so that they can limit the noises and interruptions. And if you have, a Mac, you might even want to turn your computer on to do not disturb so that incoming messages or alerts won't distract you from the conversation that you're having with employers. And the background, try and have a neutral background. Be conscious of where you're setting and try to position yourself where there isn't a lot going on behind you. So a blank wall is good. But if you can't achieve that, then make sure that your room is nice and neat and tidy. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the actual positioning of your camera and how to ace those sessions in the next slide. So let's talk about during the virtual sessions. You want to arrive on time. So log in at least 5 minutes early. It's very important that you show up at your selected session start time. Being on time shows the employer that you're dependable and respectable of their time as well. So plus this is going to give you time to work through any technical issues that might come up. And for individual sessions, it's also a good idea to ask the employer for their contact information at the beginning when you connect. In case there are any technical issues, you can communicate with them outside of Handshake. And those sessions are, again, only 10 minutes, so there's not a lot of leeway in time for any mishap. You want to maintain eye contact and practice active listening. So show your personality by smiling and nodding occasionally. This shows that you're engaged and that you appear interested, and be sure to focus on that conversation and limit any other tabs or windows that you might have open. You also want to look into your webcam when you're talking to the employer. So it's kind of tempting to look at your screen when you're responding to the employer and looking at their face on the screen. But when you look into the camera, it will appear that you're giving that direct eye contact. And also just be conscious of where your webcam is positioned. So you want to be eye level. You don't want to be looking down. You don't want to be looking up. It should be that you're looking at eye level with the distance from your computer screen. And then have those questions prepared and be active and engaged by asking questions. So bring a list of prepared questions for each session. Having several questions ready will help you in case one or more of the questions are answered early on by the employer. And then keep some paper and pen nearby so you can jot down new questions that you might think of during the conversation. All right, so those are the basic tips in preparing for the virtual career fair. Do we have any final questions for today's session?
We do have a few questions here. The first of which is, how long will sessions last with companies during the fair?
So the group sessions are set at 30 minutes, and then the individual sessions are 10 minutes.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. I don't really have professional clothes. Will a white shirt and black or tan pants work? Should I wear jewelry to dress it up?
I think it's fine if you don't have any of those foundational pieces that we mentioned. It is good to start thinking about acquiring those. And I often recommend that you can even look in places like Goodwill. They have a section just for blazers and jackets. But if you don't have that, if you have a nice solid top, or a sweater that you could put over that, like a cardigan, that'd be perfectly fine. If you have a few foundational pieces of jewelry, so nothing too flashy, but maybe a simple necklace or a stud earrings, something simple and classic would be fine.
Yeah, that's great advice. How do I know what jobs an employer is hiring for?
So there are places where some of the employers have listed in Handshake the positions that they're recruiting for. But if you don't see that posted in Handshake as you do your research, go beyond their profiles and go to their website. And again, you're going to review all of their different fields, but there should be, look for something like careers, job opportunities, work with us to see if there is a list there. And then just review those job descriptions very carefully, read them line by line, make notes, and just try to get a sense of what you might be interested in and how you might be a good fit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the employers have the option to attach open positions to their registration. So some of them have opted to do that. And some of them are even offering group sessions specific to a position they're hiring for. So you will see that in there as well when you register.
Absolutely, that's great.
How many questions is a good number to prepare?
Well, like I said, sometimes, they'll answer a few of the questions that you might have down. So I would always recommend over preparing and coming up with as I would say maybe a list of 10. Now you're not going to have the chance to ask all of those, but just have some prepared in advance so that when it's time, you do have some to pull from. But you always want to ask them what's the next step in the hiring process. That's a really good question and way to figure out what might be the next step. Do you need to apply online, and then what? So I don't know that there's a magic number. In 10 minutes, you don't have a lot of time to ask questions that you would in maybe a typical interview. So probably won't have a chance to ask too many, but I would definitely ask them about next steps. And also just, be engaged during the conversation, because naturally something might come up through that conversation. And so you can always have a list to pull from, but stay engaged with the conversation and just be curious about what they have to say.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes you'll find, like Mallory said, questions just flow based on the conversation. So, keep that in mind. Like, you're just having a conversation with somebody. It's a more formal conversation, but it is a conversation and things will flow as they normally do. So what do we do if we have a group session that ends right when an individual session begins?
So if you have an individual session directly after a group session, it might be a good idea to exit the group session a little bit early. Again, you want to arrive at least 5 minutes early for that one-on-one session. And so if you have scheduled it in that way, I would give myself at least 5 minutes to prepare for the one-on-one. That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So do you have any tips to ease nerves while interacting with employers virtually?
Well, I think, it's normal to feel nervous and to feel that excitement. That's a part of interviewing, whether it's in a career fair or just, meeting one-on-one. Accept that that's normal. But I think the best way to ease that is planning and preparation. So feeling like you know as much as you can about that company, knowing as much about the position and why you're a good fit, that's going to help you to be more confident. And while it's going to be a normal thing to feel a little bit anxious, the best way to ace it is to be prepared. But, just like when we do these workshops, I might get a little bit nervous. Take a breath, take a moment to think about what you want to say, and just be as enthusiastic and open to learning as possible.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I mean, like I just mentioned as well, something that has always helped me is to remind myself that it's a conversation with another person. You do that every day. You're always talking to other people. So, and of course, you do want to be a little bit more formal about it. You don't want to get too casual, but it is just a conversation with another person.
Absolutely, it is. It's at the end of the day, they are a human just like you, and they are here. They want to learn about you. They are excited about this event. So keep that in mind too, is that they're excited to connect with you and excited that you're interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have one final question here, and it's how much information do employers have access to about me, of like personal information prior to the fair?
Yeah, so with your profile settings, I would recommend that you check those to see what you have shared. You have some options as to if you want to share your GPA. You can choose to make that visible, or you can choose to hide that. And then also you can choose to make your profile private. And if that is the case, then I don't think they can see your information. So you want to check those and see what you've opted for. But when you upload a resume and you have a profile set to public, they can see that. They can see your basic information, such as your degree, when you're going to graduate, your experience, and then also the documents that you choose to share with them. But it really does come down to the settings that you've opted for. So I'd really look to see what you've opted to share.
Yeah, definitely. For group sessions, as far as the virtual career fair goes, employers only see the number of attendees that have signed up for it. They don't see your personal information. And then, but for the one-on-ones, they have access to, like Mallory said, all of the information that you have made public within Handshake. So your profile and your resume, and all of that's why it's so important that all the information on there is up to date.
Yeah, and outside of the fair as well, when those settings, that goes for employers that are in the Handshake system, within the University of Louisville Handshake system. So, aside from this event, we've had students that worked in our office that have been contacted by recruiters or employers about opportunities in their inbox. So I really encourage you to complete your profile, even beyond this event, and to check your inbox regularly. Again, there have been real opportunities that have been connected through Handshake, and so it is a good opportunity to be discovered for potential opportunities you don't even know about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point about the Handshake inbox, because employers do have the ability to message you before the fair. So if you register for one of their one-on-one sessions, they can message you via Handshake before the fair. I don't know how many employers are actually taking advantage of that prior interaction, but that is an ability they have. So you want to be on the lookout for that. But otherwise, that's all the questions we have.
All right. Well, thank you, Maddie. And let's just want to remind you of our upcoming events for Mega Career Fair Week. We are having virtual career fair trivia on Tuesday, the 29th. So test your knowledge in all of these workshops and you're ready for the career fair on Wednesday, September 30th from 11 to 2 p.m. And then we also just, for those who are questioning about getting prepared for these interviews, feel free to connect with your career coach through Handshake. You can schedule an appointment in the Career Center section, and we'd be happy to help you in preparation for the event. And also follow us on our social media. That's our handle at the bottom, and check out our website for a list of our resources and previously recorded workshops. Thank you all for joining us.
I put the links to Mega Career Week programming, as well as to register for the internship and career fair that Mallory mentioned. And otherwise, again, thank you all for joining us and have a great rest of your Friday.